Your kit will arrive in a box as following. Inside the box you will receive the following components. One battery, fitting components, one battery charger, one torque plate, one hub puller, twist grip gear selectors, one ECU bag, tie wraps and wire tidier and fitting instructions, one wheel with hub motor included, freewheel already fitted. Inside the box you will receive the following components: 2 brake levers, 1 thumb throttle, 2 hand grips, 1 ECU, 2 components for the pedal elect and a display. Inside your battery box you will receive 1 battery with 2 unique keys. To remove the battery slider, turn the key to unlock and slide the battery back. You've got 1 component now to fit on your frame, and obviously the battery is separate. On the battery you have a switch to turn the battery on and off, which lights up blue, and on the other side of the battery you've got a battery indicator. You've also got a USB port as well for charging your telephone if required. Along with the battery you will receive a battery charger, complete with a UK plug and the lead to plug into the battery to charge, which goes next to the USB port. Also included in the kit was a torque plate, which is made up of various components. We will cover this later on in the video, but this is a very important part. We also supply a crank puller to pull off the crank on 90% of bikes. We will explain this further on in the videos as well. Okay, to fit your rear wheel hub, obviously you would have swapped your tyre off, taking care to get the direction of rotation correct from your old bike and your inner tube onto the new hub. In the kit you need to put 1 washer each side, as follows. It's also quite a good idea to cut the tyre wrap off the spoke and just leave this wire on from the present moment. The next stage is to offer up the wheel to your forks to see if it fits in. And we do this the opposite way around because it's easy just to slide it in. This needs to be a nice snug fit in your forks. It's a good idea to offer it up to the forks the opposite way around. It should slide in and be a nice fit. If it's too tight you may need to take a file and just dress the edges carefully to make the component fit slide in. If your bike has got rear disc brakes, you need to remove the Allen key screws around here, remove the spacer plate, which is a dummy plate, and then screw your disc on. Please be careful to make sure that you use these screws, as longer screws can catch inside the hub. Once you've offered the wheel into the frame, make sure the axle is tight up against the end of the forks. Also, ensure that the wire is going downwards to stop water ingress. The next stage is to fit the all-important torque plate. This torque plate will stop spin out of the hub. You must fit this component, otherwise you may null the warranty. To fit the component, slide it up the wire and offer it up to the frame. If your frame, you can find a hole already there, all you need to do is to bolt this to the frame. If you can't find a hole, if you do not wish to drill the frame, another way is using the longer pivot arm. You'll notice this pivot arm has got a slot in here. In the kit there is a Jubilee clip which you can put around the frame. Or alternatively, you may be able to find another hole to put the arm into to save you drilling the frame. In the kit you will have some locating washers. On the right hand side of the bike you need to fit this washer facing down in the fork cutouts, as so. You'll then have a 22mm nut, screw this nut on, making sure that the axle is right at the top of the fork. When you're happy that your wheel is central and right up, you need to tighten both of these nuts. Sometimes you may find it better to drop the bike on the floor to put the pressure to push the hub up. As you can see on our bike, on the demonstration, we've actually drilled the frame and we've securely fitted the torque plate. We've then put the nut on top and securely tightened this as well. Following the nuts, you need to put the water retainer plastic dome on. Okay, in this part of the video we're going to fit the pedalette, which is these two components here. As you notice, we are fitting this on the left hand side of the bike, which is easier to fit. All you need to do is to remove your bung. You need to undo your crank. You then need to come back to the special tool which I spoke about earlier to actually pull this crank off. So you screw the black piece in. This needs to go all the way home. Make sure it's fairly tight. You then need to screw in the silver bit, which is the puller part. Sometimes it can be a little stiff. This pulls your head in. You can then unscrew the tool. First component to fit is on the sensor. Okay, on this bike we're going to mount this behind this C bolt. When removing this, I've already loosened it with a C spanner. Make sure that the inner bearing does not turn. So all I'm going to do is unscrew this component, place the sensor in like so, and then put back the outer ring. Screw home the ring, again making sure that bearing hasn't turned. Just going to do this hand tightening. You can tighten it with the C spanner, which is probably best. You then need to fit the magnetics around. This must be fitted with the shiny side out, with the magnets facing you. Push this firmly home, closing up this air gap. You may find for some cranks you may need to put a washer behind here to hold this in tight. Okay. On some bikes you may also need to take a small piece off the back of the crank to get this to fit. This can be gently filed off, or if you have the luxury of milling machine, mill a small piece off to get it to fit. Also, on some bicycles you may not be able to remove this C part, so it's quite acceptable to remove the sensor, which is only one screw in the back, from the plate, and now you can actually glue the sensor to the frame. We use a 2-pack solution on some bikes to do this. The important part is that you actually mount the sensor somewhere on the frame where the magnets will be able to pass. The pedal elect is now complete. As you can see, we've got the sensor mounted, we've also got the magnetic disc mounted. Very important is the air gap in between these two. It needs to be between 2 to 3 millimeters. If you have the air gap too wide, the pedal elect will not work, or it may work randomly, i.e. when you ride the bike, the power will come and go. You either need to bend the bracket in to give the air gap tight, or on this bike we've also fitted a washer behind the crank to keep that nice and secure. Okay, we're going to mount the battery on the down tube where normally the bottle is mounted. Remove the 2 bolts if they're fitted. Offer up the plates to where the bolts would go. Secure the plate with the Allen keys. Moving on to the handlebar setup, what we need to do on this particular bike is we're going to remove the grips. This bike has got twist grip gears on it, so it's ideal suited to e-bike conversion. If your bike has got different sorts of gear selectors, in the kit you will notice we have supplied some twist grips to make this easier. Okay, we're going to strip this handlebar down then. So first of all we're going to move the grip. We're going to slide the gears off. This particular model's got a small Allen key to undo it by. Then we're going to take the brake lever off. We're going to do the same on the opposite side. Okay, on this bike now we have fully stripped down the handlebars. First component we're going to put in the bike kit is the thumb prop, with the thumb operating downwards. This just slides on. We'll tighten this at a later stage. As you'll see, there's a little Allen key head bolt in there to do it. Okay, the next thing we will put on is the e-bike brakes with the built-in cut-off switches. Just tighten these up slightly. Again, we'll set this all up at a later stage to suit ourselves. Next step is obviously to transfer across your original bike cables and feed them in. Again, we will adjust these at a later stage. Okay, next stage is slide your gear changers back on. Quite lucky on this bike because it has got twist grip gear changing. We slide the opposite one onto this side. Again, we'll tighten these up and get the bike on the floor. Okay, and then we'll put back on the twist grip. Now we should have the handlebars with our electric brake levers on, our thumb throttle on, and we've put back on our twist grips. As I said earlier in the video, you may need to swap your gear changes for our twist grips. The reason being is the brake lever is separate. The next part is to mount the display. First of all, we need to bolt the bracket on, which is quite simply held on by them two screws. Okay, now we've mounted the display, a couple of important things is to get the display this way up with the longest line of information. Also, getting the selector the correct way up, the screw is normally on the bottom. It's the easiest way to remember. Next part is to tidy all the wiring up. So what we've got here now is the two brake wires. We've got the wire from the display and the thumb throttle. So what we use, we go back to the spiral band which I explained earlier in the video, and then we'll wind the spiral band down these wires to tidy them up on their way to the ECU. Okay, you can see we've now fitted the spiral band neatly down, bringing all the cables down, keeping them nice and tight against the bike frame. The next part, we need to pick up the plug from the wheel motor. You'll notice there's some arrows on there. We need to line them arrows up and push the plug in so it clicks firmly. This is quite important that we make sure that's firmly in. Now we've got the spiral band down this far, we need to make sure that we pick up the cable we fitted to our pedal elect, also our battery cable, there's two cables there, and you'll have your wheel motor cable as well. Okay, we've spiral band that down to a level now, just about above the top of the battery. Then we've nicely tie wrapped all the cables to keep them all together. The next part of the operation is to take the bag we mentioned earlier, where the ECU is going to live. On the bag you need to put a small slot in the bottom of the bag. Thread all your cabling through this slot. Now we're going to fit the ECU. It's quite a straightforward job because all the cables will plug together. One thing to note is these two small grey cables and this red and black cable are not required. So you just need to match the cables up to the colours and clip them together. They all push fit, they'll all go in one home. Make sure they're all nice and tight. The bag's now fitted, secured by the Velcro straps. The ECU is neatly put in and the wires all wrapped around the ECU. Okay. Test, turn the battery on till the blue light comes on, and centre button on display, hold till the display comes on. On the thumb throttle, we're now going to push the thumb throttle and our wheels rotating on the thumb throttle. At this point we're going to check the pedal elect to make sure we've got that, so we're just going to roll the pedals and the motor's away. The next thing we need to do now is to set up our display. For this we need to power the battery down, turn the battery off, wait till the blue light goes out. Okay, to set our display up we need to power up the display on the middle button. In under 5 seconds we need to hold down the upward and downward arrow key together. You will see the speed starts flashing in the middle. Okay, on here this bike has been set for maximum speed, which is 72 kilometers an hour. If you wish to reduce this, you just push the downward arrow key to select the speed you wish to limit the bike to. I'm going to leave this bike on the maximum speed. Once you're happy with the speed, you push the middle button again and that will select the wheel size. This bike's a 26-inch wheel. If it was a different size, you just move the up and downward arrow key. We've got 700C or 28-inch. 6-inch. So just select the right size of your bike. Then push the middle arrow key, middle key again. And now you can select whether you wish to have the bike in kilometres or miles per hour by pushing the upward arrow key. Once you've selected which you prefer, just push and hold the middle key. Now the bike is set up for speed, which is on maximum on this bike. We've set the wheel size and we've also set the bike to run in miles per hour. On the display you can move up and down the pedal assistance, which obviously 0 will give you no pedal assistance, 1 is the minimum, and you can go all the way up to 5. To prolong your battery life, we find it's best to pedal it in 3, which will give you maximum battery life. Obviously if you go in 2, that will give you even more battery life. If you wish to turn the display on the eliminator, you just push the upward arrow key and you'll see the little light appear. And to turn it off, you just hold it down again. The display has got 3 functions on the display. Obviously you can see your miles per hour, your total mileage, and your temperature and your wattage of your motor, which will come on when we ride the bike. If you press the middle button, the screen will move. This will tell you the top average speed and the lowest average speed, and now we're back to the main screen. All these details are in the user manual, which comes with the bike, or the kit. Before riding the bike on the road, you just need to go through and do the final checks. Start with the brakes, make sure the brake levers are tight, comfortable and adjusted correctly. Check your wheels are tight, you're happy with all your cable, it's all secure, all tied in away. Make sure you've secured your wheel and obviously your torque plate, which we talked about earlier. Check your throttle function, make sure it's not sticking and it returns nicely. Okay, moving to the rear of the bike, you may need to adjust your derailleur. Check it on there, make sure the derailleur does not hit the hub. On some e-bikes you may have to sacrifice the top gear and limit it on the screws. You will not need this now that you've converted to an e-bike, and you'll find most of your riding will be in the lower gears. Okay, next part is to take the bike out and ride it on the road. Just a few things really. Obviously from the rear wheel point of view, the spokes will need to settle in. We find they may need slightly tightening after approximately 50 miles. However, if you do get a slight clicking noise or anything from the spokes, ride the bike first. You may need to put a little bit of lubrication in the spokes nipples. Do not over tighten the spokes. They will need checking at 50 miles per hour.